Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
I've not changed my mind on this at all, folks. I'm telling you, there's one thing, and look, I'll be the first to admit that this whole Comey sideshow is loaded with stuff. But to me, there is one thing in this that stands out above everything else that demonstrates what's going on here. Greetings, great to have you, Rush Limbaugh, behind the EIB golden microphone here at the EIB network. Eager to get started. Telephone number 800-282-2882. The email address lrushbo@eibnet.us. I will refresh your memory on what that one thing is, and in due course. And we've got Comey sound bites and people reacting to Comey. I mean, it's out there. I think the TV ratings are in on his Piers Stephanopoulos last night. 9.7 million people. The CMAs, the Country Music Awards, had 12 million. And we don't yet know what the Walking Dead finale was. That was last night, too. And we'll supposedly get the numbers on Tuesday. But I guess 9.7 million, 10 million's not chump change. It's not as large as CNN got for the Make America Horny Again tour with Stormy Daniels. And then of that 10 million, you cannot assume that all 10 million agree with and or like Comey. In the meantime, Trump's approval number continues to go up. In another poll, more and more people, including Democrats, are crediting Trump for the economy. And in the generic ballot, where the Democrats and the media think, because of the generic ballot, there's going to be this blue wave in November, the Democrats are going to win everything. In fact, they already have, if you listen to them. They're going to win the House. They're going to win the Senate. Then they're going to impeach Trump. And then they're going to somehow put a Democrat in the White House after they dispatch Trump and Pence and whoever else. I mean, they're going to own America after November. They've got it, making book on it already. The generic ballot continues to close. The Democrats now only have like a 3 or 4 point lead in the generic ballot, down from 15 points or higher last December. So when you look, again, remember my side-by-side comparison. Over here, the real America and the people who make it work. And over here, the drive-by media and the swamp and everybody that is guided by, influenced by, pays attention to that. There's not much overlap here. While all of this is going on over here to destroy Trump and everybody with him, Trump's numbers continue to improve. Trump's approval and handling of the economy continues to improve, and the Democrats' grasp on the generic ballot continues to slip. The two don't make sense. Over here with the drive-by media, it is nothing for the last year and a half, nothing but a full-fledged, never-stopping assault on Trump. You would figure over here on the side where America gets up, goes to work every day, makes the country work, you would think that all of that negative attention would be causing Trump to lose support. And you would think that James Comey would be loved and adored by everybody when he goes on TV, would have far and away the biggest ratings, the highest audience. It isn't happening. Just isn't happening. And the Democrats are, and the media are counting a lot of chickens here before they've hatched. And ladies and gentlemen, have you noticed how quickly, I mean instantly, the drive-by media has stopped reporting about Trump's attack on Syria? You can't find anything about it. You can't find anything about anything other than Comey today. The attack began Friday evening, and by Saturday morning, it was already pretty much disappeared from the headlines. Wonder why that is. You have a theory, Mr. Snerdley? Because it was so successful. But wait a minute, Mr. Snerdley. I thought, because I got up, I paid attention to this like everybody else, and the news media that I saw found all these conservatives, so-called conservatives, that were just livid at Trump for violating a major campaign promise, because he wasn't going to do this. He wasn't going to go to Syria and drop bombs. He wasn't going to go anywhere in the Mideast and drop bombs. He was going to save the money in those bombs and spend it on America and fix immigration and build a wall and get rid of all of the trade deals that are bad. I mean, there were a couple of Republicans who were highlighted conservatives as saying, this is it for me. I can't have it anymore. Trump's abandoned me. Trump's violated a promise. Did you see any of those stories? Yes, you did. So you saw those stories about how, once again, Trump is becoming an endangered species, even among his own supporters. 2 or 3 people. He promised he wasn't going to be like Obama. He promised he was going to bomb the hell out of ISIS. But anyway, I mean, so you had 2 or 3 conservatives who, I don't know what happened. What did Trump? And that became the focus of the news. But that even has been abandoned. That didn't go anywhere. You know, the way the media works, they go out, they find a couple conservatives who throw Trump overboard, and they think that's going to start a cascade of Trump supporters here, Fox News, elsewhere, throwing Trump overboard. They're hoping that they can generate such action and thus a story about it. Didn't happen. The Syria operation, whatever it was, no way to report that negatively about Trump, so they've dropped it. I mean, it's just gone. I think part of the disappointment in the media was that the Russians didn't shoot down our missiles. The Russians didn't attack the ships that launched, like the media. Well, I don't want to say the media's been hoping for, but the media wants Trump to lose no matter what he does. So Trump launches the attack on Syria, and they're desperately hoping that Putin, who in their perverted minds is still got leverage on Trump, Putin is still able to blackmail Trump. And Comey is even out there alleging that he thinks Putin has leverage over Trump. This whole thing, folks, is just, it's such a teachable moment. And I know you're probably bored by all the Comey stuff, but bear with me on it today at least, because there's so much not only to learn, but to use as an exclamation point on things already mentioned that Comey and his supporters are proving. And by the way, he also has his share of detractors in the swamp who are not happy about this because, like I told you on Friday, a lot of these people, and particularly in the media, thought Comey had a bombshell, thought that he had a smoking gun, thought that he had a silver bullet, that he was waiting to reveal it in the book. Because they think that somebody is going to find the smoking gun. Russian collusion. They think somebody's going to find the silver bullet. They think somebody's going to find it. They thought Comey was going to reveal it. Comey's book has nothing in it that he hasn't already said. In fact, Comey, if he were Scooter Libby or Michael Flynn or Manafort, Comey would have his own set of problems because Comey has essentially published a 300-page dossier on an ongoing investigation. There is an ongoing investigation, whether it's bogus or not, it is ongoing, and Comey has just vomited all over it by revealing a whole bunch of it. And much of this is in violation of Justice Department and FBI guidelines. So since Putin didn't shoot down our missiles, since Putin didn't fire back at Trump, since Putin didn't escalate things, the media disappointed again and let down. I suspect one of the reasons is that for anybody sitting up and taking notice, this completely undercuts the entire Trump-Russia collusion story yet again, is what this Syria attack does. If Putin had colluded with Trump to secure the election, and Putin has the proof, then there is no way any of all of this is happening. There is no way Putin sits there and lets this happen in Syria. There is no way that it even gets to that point because Putin, if he's got the goods, if there was collusion and he can prove it, then Putin would reveal it, could reveal it at any time. Trump would know that Putin could reveal it at any time. Trump, therefore, would not want to provoke Putin in any way. Therefore, we would not be provoking Russia. None of this makes any sense whatsoever if indeed there was Trump-Putin collusion on the election. And that is why the Syria story, among many other reasons, dropped as though it never even happened. Because anybody sitting up and taking notice, this completely undercuts the entire Trump-Russia collusion story yet again. And as I so humbly noted last week, how can anyone explain Putin allowing his favorite client state, Syria, to be bombed, probably even some of his own soldiers killed, without retaliating? And what better way to retaliate than to announce to the world that, yes, he and Trump really did collude to defeat Hillary, and here's the proof. Why not do that if he's got it? That'd be the end of Trump. That would be the end. I mean, Vladimir Putin would be the man of the year for the next 10. In fact, they would probably give Vladimir Putin Time magazine. Say, here, dude, you own it. Write about whatever you want. We're so happy with you that we'll give you Time magazine. And you can be man of the year for as many years as you want to be. And Putin wouldn't even have to break a sweat to do any of that. So any rational person has to ask themselves, why would Putin allow himself and his country to be quasi-humiliated like this if the Russians have something on Trump? As Comey is claiming, Comey's still out there claiming that he thinks that, that Putin's got some stuff and is still exercising leverage over Trump. Any rational person has to reply it's because there never was any Trump-Russia collusion. It's all one big, gigantic, destructive tissue of lies. And one of the new lines of thinking, one of the new narratives about the dossier is that it can't be proven or disproven. Yes, in fact, that may be, and it is by design. This whole thing is a gigantic political operation, and it is designed to have a lifespan for as long as the Democrats want it to have a lifespan. It's designed so that it really can't be proven. And as Comey's running around saying that Mr. President can't prove something that didn't happen, very difficult to prove something that didn't happen. But he did with Hillary. He exonerated Hillary. He said she didn't do it even before he interviewed her on the email scandal. So our heroic media have decided that they are not going to be distracted by Trump's wag the dog scenario. That's another narrative about Syria. It's wag the dog. Trump simply trying to distract from this killer book by James Comey. And so the media is instead going to go full throttle, 24/7 coverage of the courageous revelations of Saint Comey. Even though these revelations, I think they're going to backfire when this is all said and done. Starting to, even now in certain places, it's going to harm Comey in ways that he, I don't think, dreamed of. I think Comey has fallen prey to what a lot of people get sucked in by. McCain, for example, thought the media loved him. And because McCain thought the media loved him, McCain thought he was untouchable. McCain thought that meant that a majority of the American people would love him. So many people on our side crave the approval of the media, crave puff pieces from the media, crave respect from the media. And if they get some, then they think everybody who reads it is going to agree with it, and they think a majority of the American people consume drive-by media. I think Comey is a classic example of somebody who's bought totally into his press clippings. And I think he believes that the American people look at him as a singular hero on a mission to save the nation and the Constitution from Donald Trump. And I think he believes that everybody looks at him that way. And I think he believes that outside of his description of what would be fringe players, he thinks the vast majority of American people are very appreciative of what he's doing, that they understand his supreme intellect. I think he's bought hook, line, and sinker into it. And when that happens to you, you automatically block reality. And that's when you learn the biggest lessons. You create these false, secure enclaves in which you live and thrive based on media coverage or external outside approval. You make the mistake of assuming it's representative of a vast majority of people, either in your town, at your office, or in your country. That's where Comey is right now. He's going to be shocked at some point to find out just how unimportant a whole bunch of people end up thinking he is. Let me take a brief time out. We'll come back. Do you know why this is happening, by the way? You know, I like to try to synthesize things down and find why is all of this going on. And if I ask you that question, I'm sure I'm going to get as many answers and attempted explanations as there are people out there such as you trying to answer. Why are we going through all this? Why is all of this happening? Why is the Trump dossier a big deal? Why is the drive-by media the special counsel? Why is everybody devoted to getting rid of Trump? Why is this happening? And there is a rather simple explanation for it. It's not, well, yes, it's because he won, but that's the second phase. That's not the real reason they're ticked off. I mean, you can't separate it from what I'm thinking about here. It's relevant, the fact that he won, yes, of course, but that does not explain this derangement. It does not explain this shit. Look, did you see this clown, this gay New York lawyer, so frustrated that people aren't believing climate change that he committed suicide by setting himself on fire? He burned himself to a crisp to illustrate to people what's going to happen to all of us if we don't get serious about climate change. He's a well-known New York lawyer. He's gay. He's set himself on fire. He's a great hero. He's insane. This is how insane these people are. Why would a guy set himself on fire? Because he claims nobody's getting the message on climate change. Nobody's listening. We've got to shock people. Why? Does he feel the need to commit suicide by flame? You want it darker. We kill the flame. Okay, why is all this happening? This is not a major discussion point, but I just want to throw this out. The relatively short segment we have here because I went long in the opening segment. The reason I think all of this is happening is because, and Comey's mentioned, everybody thought Hillary was going to win. Not news. Everybody thought she was going to win. Because of why? Because all of the polling data, every bit, 99% of the polling data, 99% of these statistical data gurus, Hillary Clinton, 98% chance of winning, 65% chance of winning. Everything they believe. The polling data, the drive-by media, their own minds, their own hearts. And then Hillary loses. They got totally taken by the polls, and they cannot come to grips with it. They simply can't come to grips with the, yes, it's because Hillary lost and Trump won. But it's because everybody on the left essentially was misled and lied to by the media. They thought they had a slam dunk for a full year. They were shocked and still are. Now, look, what I was trying to say here, squeeze it into 90 seconds, is this. For an entire campaign, folks, since, even before Trump won the nomination, we had what was, you would have to say, a negligent media. Now, we have a negligent media all the time, but you and I are used to that. The other side is used to the media paving the way for them, paving the road, getting the obstacles out of the way, stacking the deck, whatever. The left is used to the media as one of their weapons in their fantastic arsenal. They trust them. They believe them. I mean, there are exceptions, of course. I mean, sometimes the drive-bys have to do negative stories and say that Clinton's now and then just to fulfill the pretense of fairness and objectivity and all that. But for the most part, if you're on the left, you know the media's on your side. And you trust them. You believe them. You support them. And we, on the other hand, we don't know what that's like. We don't know what it's like to have a media on our side, not a dominant drive-by mainstream media like the Democrats do. And so for all of the period of time during the campaign, during the Republican primaries, and through the Republican convention, Trump gets a nomination. From that moment on, everybody on the Hillary camp was told by the equivalent of their Bible that she was going to win, and in a landslide, and that the election wasn't even going to be close, that Trump might suffer the biggest landslide loss since Barry Goldwater. It was a slam dunk. It was in the can. It was in the cards. It was a fait accompli. It was just a matter of patience, waiting for Election Day. Just like now, the Democrat blue wave in November is a fait accompli. It's just a matter of patience. We just wait for the calendar. They're believing the same stuff. They're believing the same polling. They're believing the same conventional wisdom. They believe their same sources, and the people that watch them believe everything they're seeing and reading and hearing. And for a year and a half, the drive-by media negligently ignored every negative about Hillary Clinton. They covered up negatives. They ignored them. They did their best to hide the significance of her email scandal. They did their best to not report at all on the fact that Hillary was collapsing, was seizing up, was resting for weeks at a time between events. They did not report that Hillary wasn't drawing anybody to her appearances. They didn't report at all that Hillary couldn't sell any books. They spent a lot of time reporting on the popularity of Crazy Bernie, but then they would tell everybody it doesn't matter because Hillary's getting all the delegates. Hillary so believed that she was going to win that she didn't think she had to campaign for it. She was so in the can on this that she didn't think she had to go to Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, because it was already over. She believed it. Her pollsters told her that she was going to win. The drive-by media is reporting the same thing with their polls and with their analysts and with their cable news panels. Trump was an embarrassment. Trump was a joke. Trump didn't have a prayer. Trump didn't even expect to win. Trump didn't want to win. You remember all of this. And put yourself in the shoes of every one of these people, the swamp dwellers, the establishment types, and your average Democrat rank and file. And for a year and a half, you are lied to. You are misrepresented. You are basically not told the truth by a lackadaisical, lazy, overconfident media whose mission was then and remains today to destroy Donald Trump. But psychologically, year and a half, it's over. It's in the can. First female president. They can't wait. It's just a matter of time. And even as late as 7 or 8 p.m. on election night, they thought it was over. And then reality hit them upside the head, and they have not gotten over it. If their media had not been so irresponsible, if their pollsters had actually tried to get this right rather than use polling data to influence people, if their pollsters had actually, if their reporters had dared to go report truthfully what it means when 25,000 people are at a Trump rally and 200 are at a Hillary rally, instead of saying, like they did, crowd size doesn't matter. Political rallies are political rallies. And just because Trump's drawing 25,000, that doesn't mean anything, the media told themselves. Look at how often Your average run-of-the-mill Democrat liberal invests in whatever Nate Silver told him. And if Nate Silver told him Hillary had a 70% chance, it was over. Nate Silver! New York Times, there wasn't a one of them that was even close. There wasn't a one of the drive-by media institutions that even allowed for the possibility that Hillary would lose or that Trump would win. Now, I maintain to you that a year and a half of this, plus, let's not forget all of the power brokers inside the establishment are trying to do what they can to make this a reality. They're not just sitting around and waiting for the vote because they don't trust the American people when you get down to the bottom of it. They're trying to influence it every which way they can. Register illegals, register felons. They're already plotting with this, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, at least, thought there might be some problem because they wanted the insurance policy if Trump did indeed win. So one of them was holding out the possibility, but they started working on whatever it would take to undo Trump if he did win. Well, those same kind of efforts were underway to deny Trump victory. I mean, it was all in. And then the last thing that they thought possible happened. And it's driven them insane. Stop and look at it this way. If the drive-by media had behaved responsibly, if the drive-by media had reported accurately and in a timely way that Hillary Clinton was not a pretty good candidate, Hillary Clinton's in trouble, Hillary Clinton can't stand up, Hillary Clinton is seizing, Hillary Clinton is not showing up at events, Hillary Clinton did not do well in that debate, Hillary Clinton doesn't look like she has the none of that was reported. If it had been, and if the truth, or more truth at least, had been reported about the Trump rallies, rather than what the media tried to do, discredit them all the time. The media was supporting Democrat efforts to infiltrate Trump rallies with Democrats bought and paid for by Hillary and the DNC and George Soros to protest, make it look like Trump was engendering hatred and violence. They knew what was going on. They knew those were Hillary Clinton operations, just like they know today that the Steele dossier is a Hillary Clinton DNC operation. And what are they doing with that? They telling you the truth about that? Nope. They continue to run the facade that this is potentially real Russian collusion. They haven't learned a single thing. And so they told their nation of supporters that was in the bag, it was in the tank. They didn't even allow for an outside chance that Trump might win for a year and a half. And then it happens. And I think that they can't get over the psychology of this. If the media had reported this race more accurately, if Trump had been reported on as a legitimate contender and in all likelihood was going to have a much better showing than anybody thought, and if the media had done its job in preparing Hillary voters for her negatives and her problems, rather than cover up the email scandal, rather than cover up the Podesta email phishing attack, whatever they try to do, rather than try to rip out the heart of WikiLeaks, if they had just reported the truth, then the people on the left would not have been so shocked, disheartened, angry, whatever. But they weren't. They were not told of any possibility that Hillary might lose. That is why we are where we are. Now, I know there's much more to it. It's got all kinds of tentacles woven deeply in this web of deceit, but that is the foundation of all of this. If the media had just been responsible, the media had just allowed for the possibility that Hillary was not this slam dunk, then the shock of losing would not have nearly been what it is. It was so certain. It's insane. They think the Russians stole the election. They believe it. Nothing could be more insane than that. But they believe it. You can see their insanity. There are two television shows you can watch. One of them is Homeland. It just gets worse every week. You still watching Homeland? You gave it up? It is. I watch it as a case study now. I don't watch it as a good TV show. I mean, maybe if I have time later, I'll describe, but there's another one. Remember The Good Wife on CBS? Well, CBS has a streamed only on their All Access app called The Good Fight. And it is about the law firm that was in the Good Wife. And so they have lost their minds. Last night's episode, let me briefly tell you what it is. This law firm where the Good Wife used to work, some of the characters are still in this new show. The DNC sends somebody into town they're interviewing law firms to find out who they want to hire to run the actual impeachment of Donald Trump. Now, wait, that's understandable. And so they get in a conference room with all the partners of the firm that is the star of this show. And the upshot of it is that the DNC decides that they want to hire the people who can lie the most effectively. One of the lawyers says, why don't we just say that Trump raped two 15-year-old Miss America or Miss USA pageant contestants? Wait a minute, have you seen the video? No, I'm not going to say whether I've seen the video. We don't have to say we've seen it. Just say that he did it. Just allege that Trump has done all this stuff. And the DNC representative loves it. The more deranged, the more outrageous, the more hate-filled, the DNC loves it. The producers of this show think they're making the Democrats look good here. They've lost their minds. And the reason they've lost their minds, I've just recounted it. Anyway, I got to take a break here. More on all of this. And you know what else I'm going to do? We come back from the break, a couple of audio sound bites I want you to hear. And then I'm going to delve into the polling data I alluded to. We'll get to Comey in the next hour. What the hell? Everybody's doing Comey. And there's really only two things about Comey you need to know to understand everything else about Comey. So I'll get to all that when we get back. Get started on it anyway. Hang on. I have to tell you, I am so proud of you people in this audience. I just looked up after the last busy broadcast segment at the call roster. We do not have a single call on James Comey. I am so proud of you people. I am so proud. Exactly. Everybody else is talking about Comey. I've already told you the one thing you need to know. I have one more to add to it. And after that, we'll be done with it. I got so many people who want to respond to my little offhand theory about why the Democrats are insane. And that was just a throwaway, fill 90 seconds before going to a break. And here come these people who want to weigh in on it. And Trump is in Miami right now. He's doing what is this? It's in Hialeah, actually. And he's doing a small business roundtable focused on tax reform. See, side by side, over here, you got Trump and the people in this country who are making it work, and they're doing what they do. And over here, you've got the media and the left and everybody who just cannot come to grips with life in America today, doing everything they can to undermine it. And Trump just keeps striding along. He's not plodding. He is striding along. He is undeterred. They want to think they're driving him crazy. They want to believe they're distracting him. They want to believe that he's wandering aimlessly in the halls in the White House, talking to the portraits on the wall, thinking of resigning. That's not what Trump's doing. It's not who he is. Couple of audio sound bites. You know this. I know this, but I wanted you to hear the most recent incarnation of it. WNYC Radio New York, that's their PBS station. David Remnick, New Yorker Radio Hour, New Yorker Magazine, talking to the conservative columnist for the New York Times, Ross Douthat. Now, I've never heard his name pronounced. I'm pronouncing it as it looks. Is that what it is, Douthat? Okay, so the subject matter is, how can conservatism reclaim itself? And to do it, it's got to get rid of me and Fox News. And since Douthat has apparently written about that, he's being interviewed by David Remnick, big pro-Hillary left-wing Democrat, or left-wing leftist. And so here's the first bite. We've got two. You have written pretty forcefully about the pervasive influence of right-wing
talk radio and its influence on contemporary conservatism, which is far harsher, far more filled with all the things that we associate with Rush Limbaugh and now Fox, so the harsher aspects of Fox, which are plenty. How do you go about getting rid of that? If that stuff makes you sick,
I mean,
how is the culture of conservatism going to right itself?
Right, so how do you get rid of Limbaugh? How do you get rid of the harshness? How do you save conservatism by getting rid of all this harshness? You ever hear the left talk about how they can get rid of their genuine mean-spirited extremists? No. Anyway, here is the answer from Ross Douthat, conservative columnist at the New York Times.
The way the culture of conservatism probably only can be fixed to some extent from the top down. I think the people who supported Trump were wrong, but I think their theory that you needed a strong president who could redefine conservatism was actually correct. The only way it fixes itself, I think, is from the top. Somebody gets elected, governs well, and the party sort of conforms itself to their leadership. The figures we have right now, none of them have shown the capacity to be the leader that conservatism needs to be a good force for the common good in our society right now.
What happened to that? I mean, the Republican primaries, there's 16 of them up there, or 15, not counting Trump. I mean, all these never-Trumpers, they're the conservative leaders. They haven't led anything. Just wanted you to hear that. Because you have made this program possible, so therefore you are also the problem. Back in a moment. Let me sternly say, well, what is this guy's definition of conservatism? That's a good question. The conservatism these guys are talking about is very subdued. It's admittedly a minority, knows they're not going to win, but they exist in the margins to protect the guardrails, to make sure the country doesn't go off the deep end. My friends, it's one of these rare times when I wish I did have a microphone in there for the highly overpaid and rated staff. Snerdley has been going nuts ever since I played the two soundbites from David Remnick and Ross Douthat that conservatism needs a strong president to rid the movement of the influence of me and talk radio and Fox News. Snerdley's in there. What is his definition of conservatism? What do you mean conservative? That's actually a great question. What kind of conservatism are these guys talking about? Do you think David Remnick at the New York Times, or the New Yorker, is concerned about a conservatism that wins? Yes, he is. The reason he wants to get rid of talk radio, Fox News, is because we're the only things that has seen to it that Republicans win. The other conservatives, take your pick of the other media conservatives in print, all these, the conservative intellectuals, what did they ever win? Nothing. They provided intellectual heft when it came to conservative ideology and this kind of thing, but they were typified by people who were expected to lose. I'm not going to name any names. But I'm going to tell you, when this show first started and I got to meet some of these people, by the way, I don't want anybody to misinterpret my tone here. I don't dislike, I'm not at odds with maybe a few, but most of them I have good relationship with. But I'm telling you, when this was all new to me, I was just starting this program, and we're ticking upward, and it's growing leaps and bounds. There's all kinds of excitement, and I'm asking some of these conservative intellectuals, so when do you think, how long is it going to take for us to triumph and become the majority? And to a man, they all said it was not possible. They didn't expect to. I don't know, Rush. I don't think that's the objective, Rush. Okay, maybe they're, in the big scheme of things, right. I don't know. But that didn't seem to even consider it possible. To me, it's no mystery why the left today and their media want to get rid of people like me and others who do this, and Fox News, because prior to us coming along, outside of Ronaldus Magnus, nobody won. The Republicans who won were certainly not conservative. They were maybe more conservative than Democrats were, but they were still establishment types. Look, you know the drill. And here's what it really boils down to. You know why they hate Trump? They think Trump is an ogre. He's impolite. He's rude. He's ill-mannered. He's thuggish. They don't want to be associated with it. And by the same token, they don't want to be associated with what they think is harsh, outspoken. Maybe the humor is a little bit too ribald. And so they want to be seen as very straight in their own button down, reasonable, and all of that. It doesn't surprise me that the editor of the New Yorker would be asking a conservative at the New York Times, how do we get rid of these people that are causing us trouble? How do we get rid of the people causing the Democrats trouble? That's really what the question means. Is it not? You think Remnick really worries whether conservatism is what it is or what it isn't? He's only worried about it to the extent that it is an obstacle the Democrats win. So he's asking the conservative columnist for the New York Times, what do we do about the people on your side that are causing us trouble? And the conservative columnist at the New York Times dutifully follows right along with the premise and gives him an answer. Well, we need a strong president who's going to define conservatism the way we do, and then that will dictate what conservatism is. Well, hasn't that kind of been tried? Where is that conservative president? Where is he? Name one. Name one after Ronaldus Magnus. Name him. Who is it? They didn't think Bush redefined conservatism. They didn't think George H.W. Bush did. They didn't like Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz could have been a guy who would have done it. They didn't want any part of Ted Cruz. I'm talking about these conservatives that we're talking about. Anyway, just wanted to get those aired so you could get an idea of, I think, another sign that we are triumphing and another sign that we are prevailing. Because anytime they want to get rid of their problems on our side, their problem is defined as we provide serious competition to them. They want to get rid of it. They'd rather conservatism be peopled by people who don't expect to win, who don't expect to dominate. Makes perfect sense to me. Now, let's get to some of the polling data here I alluded to in the first hour, and we will get back to James Comey in due course, but I just want to tell you again, we have a full board, and we don't have a single call about James Comey here. Oh, you got one now. Why are you frowning? You upset that we even got one? Here is this is PJ Media, and it's an NBC Wall Street Journal poll. Here's the headline. Democrats lead in intensity, but fall short of House takeover. We have a bunch of polling data here that shows the conventional wisdom that the Democrats are going to win everything in November is not adding up. And I want to remind you again, contrary to conventional wisdom, my bet is that the events that shape the elections in November are yet to happen, which is why I think all polling so far in advance of an election is really worthless when you get right down to it. But to the extent that polling is used to shape opinion rather than reflect it, well, then that's a different matter. If you understand that the left uses polling to move opinion, to shape it rather than reflect it, well, then you take it for what it is, i.e. a news story, which is how polling data is used. Have you noticed how much breaking news is a poll result now? So this from the NBC Wall Street Journal. This poll, it says, casts a more realistic light on Democrats' chances. There is little doubt in this poll that Trump hatred is giving the Democrats an edge in voter intensity, voter motivation. But the numbers that would signal a blue wave just aren't there in this ABC or NBC Wall Street Journal poll. And against all odds, the president's approval numbers are as high now as they have been at any time since he was inaugurated. And in the Rasmussen poll, Trump is up another point to 51%. And the polling data on the economy and the tax cuts and who gets credit, that's also trending in Trump's direction. So by the measurements the drive-by media, the Democrats themselves use, the evidence of a blue wave just isn't there yet. However, they don't know that. If you watch the news, read the news, whatever you do to get the news, when they talk about 2018, it's over. The Democrats are going to win and win big. They're already planning impeachment. You know it. You've been treated to it for months now. In the NBC Wall Street Journal poll, Democrats have a 7-point advantage in congressional preference. This is the generic poll. 47% of voters want a Democrat-controlled Congress. 40% Republican control. Now you might, but Rush, you can say we're winning. We're down 7 points. Yeah, but in March, the Democrats had a 10-point edge, 50-40. And it was a 15-point edge in January, December, toward the end of the year. In past wave cycles for the Democrats, were 2006 and 2008, this poll typically found Democrats with a double-digit lead in congressional preference. They're down now to 7 points. That's getting close to the margin of error. The current poll shows Democrats with an advantage in enthusiasm. 66% of Democrats express a high level of interest, either a 9 or a 10 on a 10-point scale, in showing up for the election in November. 49% for Republicans. So in this, they are saying that the intensity, the motivation, the desire to get out there and vote, 9 or 10 points on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. 66% of Democrats are at a high level, 49% for Republicans. However, the intensity is also falling. The intensity is way down on the Democrat side. There is a psychological reason for this. And that is that the kind of intensity that the Democrats have been feeling, this deep emotional rage, is simply physically, physiologically and emotionally not sustainable. They can't hold on to it for that long. It's already starting to peter out. Now, that's not to say that Trump could do something that really ticks them off and revs them back up again. But what would that be? How much angrier can they get from where they have been? I think we have seen peak left-wing anger. And not to say they can't achieve it again, but we've seen peak. And they're trending down. It's hard to hold on to this kind of intensity. When you also look at real-world circumstances, primarily in the economy, people are seeing larger paychecks because of the tax cut. There are new jobs being created. There's a general uptick in trend in matters of the economy. And, of course, Trump is a wild card. His approval numbers are as high as they have ever been, which doesn't match with all this negative hatred and intensity from the Democrats. Now, the Democrats are angry. There's no question they still are. I'm not trying to erase that. But the trends are what you look at here, and their intensity, as expressed in the NBC Wall Street Journal poll, is declining. And the Republicans could be in trouble. They're going to have to match the intensity. The Republicans are going to have to do something to get people as intense or close to it as the Democrats in terms of reasons for voting. Now, what do you think some of those reasons might be? How could the Republicans do this, or how could Trump do this? Do you think it would serve Trump well to, during public appearances like this roundtable he's doing in Hialeah, Florida today, or any other campaign rally, Do you think it would serve Trump well for him to tell people that he needs them to show up, that the Democrats are loaded for bear and we cannot beat them back unless you are just as enthusiastic and just as eager as you were 2 years ago? I don't think it would hurt for Trump to do it. The media would cast that as desperate, and they would say that Trump he's indicating here that he knows the Republicans are in trouble. So while the Democrat intensity is there, it's slipping a bit, but it's still pretty high. I do, however, maintain that whatever in the primary things that are going to shape the election haven't yet happened. I mean, we're in the middle of April here. Now, according to PJ Media writing about this, history holds a cautionary tale for the Democrats. Parts of their coalition, especially the young people, minorities, single women, they tell, and this is an annual thing. It's every election. This happens, this phenomena. Young people, minorities, single women, they tell the pollsters that they are fed up. They are ticked off and they can't wait to vote. They are so fired up. And the media dutifully writes the stories. You can make book on it. You can probably remember, as I call your attention to it, all of the stories just in the last 10 years of elections. You remember all the stories of the youth vote and how if they showed up, it was over for the Republicans? 2-1 millennials support Democrats. 2-1 millennials hate Trump. 2-1 this. It's every election. We hear from the drive-by media about how young people are loaded for bear, and then they don't show up in the numbers everybody expects. Same thing with minorities. Same thing with single women. We're talking about outside presidential elections. These are different turnout models. This has happened a lot of times, and it could be one of the significant things that prevents the Republicans from losing. I'll tell you, when I hear conventional wisdom of a blue wave and the Democrats running away with it, and when everybody in the media is touting it, I automatically reject it simply because everybody else thinks it. Groupthink. Stay away from it if you can. Groupthink is the death of your brain. Groupthink is the end of you having your own opinion. Groupthink is very seductive. Go along with what most people think. Yeah, that makes you part of the majority. That makes you part of the team. That makes you hip. Smart people know what's going on. The smart people think it's over for Trump. That's groupthink. Those are dead minds. Don't become one of them. Conventional wisdom is often wrong. It's incredible how wrong it is. But whenever something becomes conventional wisdom, the smart thing to do is question it. And always question groupthink. Groupthink should always be looked at suspiciously because it's pernicious. Here's the bottom line according to PJ Media. If Trump's approval numbers are in the low 40s on Election Day, the GOP's probably toast. But if they're in the mid to upper 40s, Trump loyalists could tip the balance in some close races and keep the GOP in power. Now, you might read that as wishful thinking. And it may be on the part of the people writing this. I think Trump's approval numbers are higher than low 40s or mid 40s. I don't think the current drive-by media and their polling units can still get that right, just like they couldn't get the 2016 election polling right if they tried. And we're back, kicking off a brand new week of broadcast excellence. El Rushbo at 800-282-2882. We start with Wayne in San Francisco. Great to have you, sir.
Thanks, Rush. Good afternoon to you. Rush, I'm responding to your query as to why the left is so insane, become so unhinged.
Yes.
The Democrats. And, you know, after 8 years of Obama and many realizing, Democrats and Republicans, they realized that all they needed is one or two more presidential cycles of another Democrat in office to get to the point of no return, anything back to constitutional conservatism. Trump gets in there and he blows this up. Now, I believe, and I know a lot of other people I chat with believe, and I talk to a lot of people, they believe, as well as I do, it doesn't really matter who is in there. Trump gives them ammunition, but you mentioned Ted Cruz earlier. Imagine Ted Cruz being the president right now. They'd be going after him, both barrels. Even Rubio, as well as he's liked, they'd be going after him because they're turning back everything Obama did, furthering these progressive policies. So Trump just gives them the ammunition, but it doesn't matter what Republican or conservative.
Yeah, but wait just a second now. I don't disagree with that. But when I said this stuff wouldn't be going on, we wouldn't have a special counsel. We wouldn't have a Russian investigation unless you think that they would have tried to suggest that any Republican won as a result of collusion with Putin. You think if Ted Cruz had won, we'd have a special counsel investigating his campaign and his election, and Robert Mueller would be out there doing what he's doing, and that the Attorney General would have recused himself from? Do you think the same that this Russia investigation is debilitating everything?
Yeah. Maybe not to the extent that they're doing Trump, but God only knows what they'd be doing if Cruz was in there turning back Obama policies and promoting conservatism and, given that platform. God only knows. But Trump is just the perfect foil. He's the perfect bombastic, person to just get this angst out, get the anger and the hatred out.
He scares them. I understand. Yes, he scares them. He intimidates them. That's the real truth behind their actions here. But no, I agree with you. They would try to destroy anybody, but it would be, hang on, back in a minute. Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Rush Limbaugh, your guiding light, America's real anchorman. Here at the distinguished and prestigious Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. Scott in Sedona, Arizona. Great to have you, sir. How are you doing?
Hey, great, Rush. How you doing? I've been listening to you for years, and you've been my great conservative teacher ever since.
Well, I appreciate it very much, sir.
Yeah, I got a theory on this blue wave. It's not because that the Democrats are going to just take over. It's the Republicans that have been backstabbing Trump and the American people on everything of Trump's agenda for all this time, and they're not getting it through when they should be getting it through, so they're mad. They're going to be mad at the Republicans, and they're not going to come out and vote for them.
Wait a minute, I'm confused. You think Democrat blue wave is because of Republicans?
Yeah, because they're not helping Trump. They keep backstabbing Trump and the American people on Trump's agenda.
Well, yeah, to in certain places, some certain extent, yeah, but that I don't think has anything to do with the blue wave, with the Democrats' intensity. I mean, the Democrats aren't sitting there, hey, man, we're going to really roll. Look at these Republicans who've been backstabbing a guy. They wouldn't care what the Republicans are doing. They still would be loaded for bear. And the media would still think, the media is going to think there's going to be a blue wave regardless of polling data. Just because they hate Trump and there's going to be, or there should be one, there's going to be one. They're going to report that there will be one just because they want one, just because they expect one. To them, it's common sense that the whole country would want to get rid of Trump. That's how the media thinks. Now, that may be a bit of an exaggeration, but not much. As to the Republicans, I asked the director of the Office and Management Budget, Mick Mulvaney. I saw him about a month ago. I said, are you concerned with all of these Republicans in the House, the committee chairmen who are retiring? He said, no, not at all. So why not? He said, because they're term limited. Their time as chairman is ending, and they don't want to go back to being just a regular member of the House. After you've had the power, the perks, and all that of being committee chairman, you don't want to go back to just being a regular member of the House. Makes perfect sense that they would go because they're being term limited out. Now, the media reports these resignations as Republicans thinking they're going to lose. Republicans want out of there because it's going to be a disaster, and they don't want any part of it. And that may be the reason some of them are resigning, but most of them are resigning because they're term limited. Now, the whole idea about Republicans not supporting the Trump agenda is a real thing, and it has been a problem. In fact, for most of the first year, if you haven't heard this is going to tick you off. For most of the first year, Republican House and Senate reluctance to help Trump honestly was because they thought he was going to be gone in 6 months. They thought there was something to this collusion business. I kid you not. They thought that there was something that was going to be discovered that would jeopardize Trump's presidency. And because they thought that, they didn't want to do anything that tied themselves to it. But as the year dragged on and we got into October and November, I'm not exaggerating this, a bunch of them finally figured out that there is nothing here. And that's why tax reform happened. Tax reform happened in large part because, A, it was the right thing to do. It was needed economically. And the second reason is because Republicans lost their fear that Trump was going to be ousted. But it's fascinating to me that even though there's not been anything to this story, there has not been a shred of evidence, there has not been a single claim in that dossier, for example, verified or corroborated. And yet even the Republicans in Washington, a number of them thought that Trump would not survive it. Such is the power to create groupthink and opinion inside the Beltway or inside the Washington establishment. But once they figured out, once they concluded that Trump was not in peril because of the investigation, then they relaxed. And elements of the Trump agenda began to see some support. But that doesn't have anything to do with the blue wave and what the Democrats. If there wasn't a blue wave, the media would be talking about it anyway. You know, everybody talks about 2006 and 2008. Now, those are midterm elections for George W. Bush. Well, the 2008 was a presidential race where Republicans lost big. They also lost in 2006 because that's in the midst of the media and the Democrats undermining Bush on every front, with Bush not fighting back. But the midterms that I find more interesting are 2002. Which we have discussed on previous occasions. 2002, Wellstone Memorial. This was coming after the Florida recount, after 9/11. The Democrats thought that they were going to retake the House and they were going to get rid of Republicans. They were going to retake the Senate. It was going to be a blowout, and they ended up losing seats. The out-of-power party in the first midterm elections after a new president's elected generally does clean up. Obama lost 60 seats in 2010, folks. The Tea Party midterms, I think it was 63 seats. And that was Obamacare and the spending and a number of things. And so now the media is thinking the same thing's going to happen here in 2018, 2 years after Trump. People hate Trump, they think. People despise Trump, feel like they've made a mistake. And so the blue wave is going to be 60, 70 Democrat seats claimed. But 2002, to me, is a more interesting parallel because we had the same circumstances back then. Coming out of 9/11, very unpopular president because of the Florida recount. He was hated and despised. And the Democrats all full of themselves, and the media as well. Now, you'll note there's never a Republican wave forecast. We never hear about the big red wave. In 2010, the media was not warning us, talking about a big red wave. They were writing about potential significant Democrat losses, but we never got the term red wave because it never enters the lexicon like we are getting now. And when they're all aboard and they're all on it and it becomes a conventional wisdom, immediately suspected. Here's some sound bites from Trump. He's in Hialeah, Florida, near Miami today at Bucky Dent Park. This is a tax cuts for Florida small business roundtable. And again, this is the half of America that's getting up every day, going to work, making the country work, making the country run, doing what they have to do. They're not written about. They're not talked about. It is assumed that that country doesn't exist. The media portrays a country where everybody hates Trump, everybody regrets voting for Trump, everybody can't wait for the Democrats to win, but that's not the other half or whatever percentage. And these roundtables, it's kind of like they're surreal. If your only exposure to the country is through the drive-by media, and then you hear this kind of thing, you obviously be a little surprised. Here's a couple examples.
Since Election Day, we've created 3 million new jobs. 3 million. And if I would have said that prior to the election, that we'll create in a short period of time 3 million jobs, they would have said, that's ridiculous, that's an exaggeration, how can it be possible? We would have taken a lot of heat. But we've created 3 million new jobs, and now the number is even higher than that. So since Election Day, 3 million new jobs. Unemployment rates for Hispanics. Are there any Hispanics in the room? No, I don't. For Hispanics, think of it, lowest level employment rates. For African Americans, the lowest level ever recorded. And I'm really proud of it.
And it's all true. It doesn't get reported. It's absolutely true. The lowest level of unemployment since 1973 for African Americans, ditto Hispanic Americans. It doesn't get reported, but it's happening out there in that half of America. But in the other half of America, what's the media doing? They're making everybody hysterical. And it seems like, if not every day, every week, there is something new to be hysterical about. Either a new development in the collusion story, a new development with Mueller, a new development with Trump's lawyer Cohen, whatever it is. You can make book on the fact there's going to be something new that's going to make the other side literally hysterical. Doesn't matter. And they fall for it hook, line, and sinker every time the media plays the card. Over here, everything's normal as can be. Got a president working on rebuilding the economy. It's working at this roundtable. And a young Hispanic guy got up and talked about his business. He started it from the trunk of his car, selling things to gas stations, gas stations that are full-service gas stations, trinkets and stuff that gas stations sell along with gasoline and other things. He started a business supplying them and now has a whole bunch of employees, and he's at this little round table. He's standing up proud as he can be of his business, and he's telling Trump nowhere in the world but America could he have done what he has done. And he's proud and he's happy, and the crowd's applauding. That's what this little round table is about. It's about celebrating entrepreneurism, people that are making their way in the world, how things are working, how Trump's tax cuts are helping people to do this. None of it on TV today. Normally, Trump goes out, does a round table, you get some of it. There hasn't been any of it because it's all Comey all the time. Okay, so we just had details from the NBC Wall Street Journal poll about how the Democrats' lead in the generic ballot is slipping away. Here comes ABC Washington Post. With the Republicans' House majority at risk, it says here, 47% of registered voters say they prefer the Democrat candidate. 43% favor Republicans. Now, in the NBC poll, the spread was 4 points. In the ABC poll, the spread is 4 points. Now, we're really near the margin of error. The 4-point margin compares with a 12-point advantage Democrats had in January. And among a broader group of voting age adults, the Democrats' margin is 10 points, 50-40. Now, that's just adults as opposed to likely voters. You throw the adults category out. What's the point of talking to people who may not vote? And again, this is generic. When you add names to it, it changes, obviously. But this is the way the polling units ostensibly measure party support. And I'm telling you, this is bad news for the Democrats because back in December, when the first generic ballot results were touted, Democrats had a 15, in some polls, 18-point lead in the generic ballot. And that's when the media started going nuts about a blue wave. And now we're down to 4 points in the ABC Washington Post poll. The edge has narrowed since January, a signal to party leaders and strategists that they could be premature in anticipating a huge wave of victories in November. And again, this poll talks about voter passion. Which side is more likely to turn up at the voting booth? In this poll, the answer isn't good for Democrats. And remember, in the NBC poll just moments ago, they had a 66 to 49% lead in high motivated intensity to show up. The Washington Post ABC poll finds parity in stated voting intentions. Among registered voters, 68% of both Republican and Democrat-leaning registered voters say they are certain they'll vote. In other words, there is, in the ABC Washington Post poll, there is no, what would you call it, majority? There is no advantage. The Democrats have no greater intensity, motivation to show up than the Republicans do. But in 2010 and 2014, when Republicans averaged a double-digit advantage in intentions to vote, Democrats suffered major losses. So, this is not at all looking like the conventional wisdom that has a blue wave happening. Let me just put it, if this is right, and of course it isn't because we're nowhere near the election, and the things, I say again, pardon the redundancy, but the things that are going to shape the election probably have not happened yet. But I'm just going to tell you, if the Democrats only have a 4-point lead in the generic ballot, I'm sorry, that's not a big enough lead to give them the House. That's not a big enough lead to take control of the House. And this is not a Republican poll. This is the ABC Washington Post. In another poll, this is from Quinnipiac University. This one has a great reputation. It's highly reputed. A plurality of Democrats now say that Trump, not Obama, is responsible for the uptick in the U.S. economy. A plurality of Democrats have indicated President Trump, not Obama, is responsible for the current state of the country's economy, and they think it's okay. It's not they think it's bad. No trick here. As of April 9th, 46% of Democrats agreed the U.S. economy was because of Trump. The results suggest that Trump is getting more credit for the economy, although it could be better, they say. 51% of American voters said the economy was in good condition. 27% thought the economy was not so good. 12% thought it was poor. The point of all this is, you know what we feel about polling here. You can do with it whatever you want. But it doesn't. The Democrats and the left run these polling units. And this data here does not reflect at all the accompanying reporting of a blue wave. Now, I'm not saying a blue wave isn't going to happen. I'm not predicting anything. All I am telling you is not to believe the tripe that the media is telling you today or tomorrow or next week about elections in November. Just don't believe it. Their business is to depress you. Their business is to make you think that it's hopeless. Their business is to see to it that you don't even vote because you don't think it's going to matter. Their business is to create an overall image and picture that Trump was a one-off, that everybody regrets now, that everybody sees they made a mistake, and it's going to get fixed in November. And then the country will be right again. That's what they want you to think a majority of Americans are thinking. And I'm here to tell you that's not even close. Man, oh man, fastest 3 hours in business. Media everywhere. 2 of them already in the can. We got the final one coming up. And going to have to get into a little bit of Comey. Not much, just a little bit. It is important to try and put all of this in some kind of perspective. And, of course, we will get back to your call. So hang on. We'll be back before you know it. And back we are. Grab audio soundbite number 22. Great to have you folks. El Rushball and the EIB network, where I am having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. I do it each And every day, I've been doing this since I was 16 years old. And I still look forward to it every day when I get up. I look forward to it the night before. You know how lucky that is. That's blessed. Anyway, here we are, 800-282-2882. If you want to be on the program, the email address is rushbo@eibnet.us. Here is the guy I was talking about that was at the Trump tax reform business roundtable out there down in Hialeah, Florida today. I mistakenly referred to this guy as a young guy. He's actually 60. He's been doing his business for a long time. His name is Maximo Alvarez. And he wanted to tell Trump about the business he started in the trunk of his car.
The story of many, many millions of people who come to this country to look for an opportunity. And our president has now restored the capacity of people like me that started a business from the trunk of our cars to become a very prominent company where we impact over 40,000 families. And thank you, Mr. President. I'm very happy that right before he was elected, we had a town hall meeting, and I took the liberty of electing him. I said, we're going to elect you in November, and we're going to see you soon. My God, I look prophetic today.
Anyway, it is a shame that we refer to this as the other America. But in the current media landscape of today, this is the other America. The America the media reports on is the America that hates Trump, that regrets voting for Trump, that can't wait till Trump's replaced. And the media is all about the efforts underway to get rid of Trump. And it's made it look like that's what the entire country wants to do. So anyway, Trump is carrying on, and he is highlighting elements of his agenda that are succeeding and improving life for people. Just keeps plugging away at it. And I was telling some people over the weekend, you invariably have people who think Trump should do this differently or that differently. Some people think Trump should think of resigning. I mean, it runs the gamut. And I say to every one of them, let me ask you a question. Do you think you could put up with 1 week of what Donald Trump has endured for over 2 years now? What do you mean? So every day you get up, and they're trying to destroy you. The Department of Justice of the United States, the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, the global intelligence agent trying to destroy you. Every day there's 15,000 news stories about what a reprobate you are. How long could you put up with that? And I'm stunned how few people personalize it that way. I'm struck how maybe if you've never been through it, it doesn't cross your mind. I don't know. But it does mine. And I can tell you, I don't know anybody who can put up with this and not be sidetracked and not be derailed. I don't know anybody who would not be so embittered that they would have lost sight of the agenda by now. Especially, and let's be honest about Trump. Trump is like everybody else. He wants to be loved. He does. Trump wants to be overwhelmingly popular. And I think in some ways, Trump tells himself that he actually is. And he just doesn't believe some of this negative stuff. I told you the example of Turning Point USA, little seminar they had at the White House. And the guy, Charlie Kirk, leading it, says, Mr. President, what can you do to help us with all the Trump hatred and the anti-Trump bias on campus? And Trump said, that's really overrated. I don't think there's that much of it. That's how he deals with it. He just doesn't let it in. He doesn't process it, which is actually good. The worst thing you can do is process the people that hate you. The worst thing you can do is process the people who criticize you. Dwell on it. Think about it. I'm just telling you that I don't know anybody who could put up with this. I don't know anybody who'd want to. I don't know anybody who would think that they have to. They get out of it. Well, I mean, most people can't stand a sentence of criticism if it happens to them in the newspaper. Okay, we move on to Comey here, and I really want to harp on just a couple of things to illustrate what I think makes all of this understandable as bogus. And I want to start it with audio sound bites. Grab sound bites 3 and 4. David Assman of Fox News, late Friday afternoon on the Fox Business Network. The show is After the Bell. And he's got Howard Kurtz on. Howard Kurtz hosts a program called Media Buzz on the Fox News channel. And here's Asman's first question to Kurtz.
There was one exchange that fascinated me, and so far the only person besides myself who showed any interest in it is Rush Limbaugh, between Stephanopoulos and Comey, not to alert the president of the United States that another party had used all this salacious information, which had been used, by the way, as a basis, at least in part, for a FISA warrant against him, that this was opposition research from the Democratic Party using Russia. He didn't think that was significant? I find that extraordinary, don't you?
It is, and he'll tell you why in a minute, but here's Kurt's reaction.
I do, and I think the exchange is very significant, and I give Stephanopoulos credit for asking that question. My sense right now from the early reviews, the early commentary and coverage, is that the mainstream media are obviously, former FBI director calling the president a liar, that's going to be a headline, but are almost embracing the Comey indictment of Donald Trump because many of its members agree with it.
Okay, now, here's the thing about this question of the dossier and Comey telling Trump about it. This is really, really profound, folks. We have this dossier that has been bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton. You know this. It was written by a retired British spy named Christopher Steele, who ostensibly talked to some sources in Russia, who gave him a bunch of salacious stuff that Trump had done, including hiring prostitutes to urinate on a bed in a hotel room in Moscow. That document was used to get a FISA warrant to spy on Carter Page, who really had nothing significantly to do with the Trump campaign at all. So it was really secured as a means of spying on Trump. So on 2 different dates, January 6th, January 27th, Comey tells Trump about this dossier. On neither occasion does Comey tell Trump what it is. On one occasion, Comey tells Trump, hey, you need to see this. This is the kind of stuff that's out there. You've said that you don't need a daily intelligence brief. Well, you really should, because this is the kind of stuff that can be out there. You need to know this kind of stuff is going on. So Trump looks at it and he sees the urination story. So, oh my God, this is crazy. Do I look like a guy who would hire hookers to you? And Comey thinks that is an indictment statement. That Trump is admitting that he hires hookers, but that it wouldn't look like he does. Do I look like they? So, but Comey doesn't live in Trump's world and never has, and doesn't know how people in Trump's world think or talk. In Trump's world, appearances count. In Comey's world, it's all but innuendo and evidence, and what people say doesn't count. Every perp denies the crime, so you never believe a denial. The second time Comey mentioned it to it, Trump says, you need to disprove that. I mean, if my wife is a 1% chance my wife thinks that's true, oh my God, that could be horrible. Comey says, my wife would never think that any of that could be true. Not 1%, not 2%. I find that's a really crazy marriage if you're married to somebody who thinks there's even a 1% chance it could be true. And then he says, Mr. President, you might not want to really have me investigate this because it's very hard to prove that something didn't happen. At no time did James Comey tell Donald Trump that this was a fraud document. At no time did James Comey tell Donald Trump that document was essentially part of the Hillary Clinton campaign. At no time. If James Comey had told Donald Trump that document, the Steele dossier, was work product of political opposition research bought and paid for by the Hillary campaign, it would have ended the entire investigation at that point, which Comey knew. Therefore, Comey could not tell Trump the truth and never was going to tell Trump the truth, because this entire investigation is based not on intelligence, not on truth, not on evidence. It's based on nothing more than a political desire to nullify the election of Donald Trump. It has as its purpose to either get him thrown out of office or to force him to resign, simply because the people who don't like Trump inside the Beltway think it's offensive that he won and they want him gone. If Comey had admitted what this was, it would have been the end of every aspect of the investigation. That is how important this is. Now, I must say, there's a caveat to this. We don't know for certain when it is that Comey knew about the origins of the dossier. I am assuming, and I am relatively sure, that when Comey told Trump about it, he knew that it was not intelligence, that he knew it was an opposition research document bought and paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign at DNC. But I can't state that with ontological certitude. He first briefed Trump on January 6, 2017. Now, there is evidence of when Comey knew what, but it is currently either classified or under seal. And I believe this is what Devin Nunes is trying to get disclosed. I think this is part of what's redacted in all of these memos that Nunes wants that the FBI is reluctant to share. And when they do share, there's a bunch of redactions. I think Nunes is trying to confirm that Comey knew on January 6th and certainly January 27th that this was not intelligence, that it was opposition research, and that he did not tell Trump about it. In that interview with Stephanopoulos, I don't think I even used the term Steele dossier. No, of course I didn't tell. It didn't occur to me. It didn't occur to you to tell him that the thing was political opposition research? Didn't occur to you? Folks, this to me, I don't care what else is in this book. This is bombshell stuff to me. Now, admittedly, I'm not a denizen of the swamp, and the denizens of the swamp apparently don't think this is that big a deal compared to other things in this book. But to me, this is everything. That dossier is everything. They got a FISA warrant twice on this thing. They were spying on the Trump campaign. They were trying to get Trump thrown out of office. Fake, bogus allegations. Nothing substantial behind any of these allegations. Nothing corroborated. Nothing verified. Even Comey admitted that. He presented this to the president so that that would become news. That's how they could get the existence of the dossier into the mainstream media. The president has been shown this dossier that was free and clear to report on the thing. There is nothing new in the Comey book, and that is powerful. And here's why. If Comey had anything new, if Comey had anything that nobody else knows, if Comey had the bombshell, if Comey had the silver bullet, he would have revealed that in under oath testimony. If he had it. He doesn't have anything new. This book is fraudulent in the sense that it's being reported as Comey unloading and telling people all kinds of things we don't know. There isn't anything new in the book. The book makes Comey look like the biggest nerd in high school you can ever remember. Thinks the world revolves around him. Thinks he's the only Boy Scout left. It's really perplexing in that regard. But here's not only did Comey know that this Steele dossier was political opposition research, they all knew it, folks. They all knew it. And by all, I mean every investigator. Stroke, Rosenstein. Take your pick. They all knew that this dossier was a fraudulent, fake bunch of crap. John Brennan at the CIA knew, who I think is the general leading this army. I think Brennan is the guy running everybody. And the reason I think that is because Brennan can't shut up himself in his opinions of Trump and Trump's presidency and what he's done. Brennan just can't shut up, and he is revealing his bitterness and his anger. Why should any of this be personal to Brennan? He was Obama's CIA guy. Well, the reason it's personal to Brennan is because this hasn't worked. They were going to get rid of Trump in 6 months, folks. That was their objective. And this was Exhibit A in doing it. The dossier. And they were hoping the American people would believe this and buy it and demand that Trump be thrown out on the basis that we can't have such reprobates in the highest office in our land. We cannot have a president who would hire prostitutes to urinate on a bed, especially because Obama slept. That's beyond the pale. That's what they were hoping. And that's why Comey didn't tell Trump the whole thing was fake and fraudulent, when he knew it was and when they all knew it was. And if Comey had told Trump that, I'm telling you, that's the end of the investigation. That's the end of it. All ends right there. Because everything descends from that dossier. I have to take a break, but I'm not through. Back in a minute. Now, there's one other piece to this, because the Daily Caller, former FBI Director James Comey, says he is unsure whether the Steele dossier is a credible document. Has it checked out? Is it a credible document? Stephanopoulos asked Comey. Answer is, I don't know, Comey said. ABC did not include the segment in its 1 hour special. So in the segment, Comey says he didn't tell Trump that it was Hillary Clinton opposition research. Stephanopoulos knew it, knows it now. Did you tell Trump it was up? No, of course not. No. I didn't even call it Steele dossier. In his book, Comey is saying he doesn't know if it's credible. If he doesn't know if it's credible, would somebody explain to me how Comey allowed it to be used to get a FISA warrant to spy on the Trump campaign? If it's not evidence, if it's not corroborated, well, I can give you the answer. Comey and the FBI said they relied totally on past credibility of Christopher Steele. He had never let them down in the past. I simply do not believe this. I do not believe that James Comey did not know that this was opposition research. I do not believe that James Comey literally thought this was true. It's possible, given what they think of Trump, and given the deranged minds that make up the Never Trump movement. But I'm going to tell you, the fact that it's a political opposition research document being used to get a FISA warrant, and Comey says he can't corroborate any of it, then how does it get used? There's got to be, we're talking a FISA search warrant here. There has to be some probative, evidentiary value to this, supposedly, to be able to get such a warrant. Hi, how are you? Welcome back, Rush Limbaugh, with half my brain tied behind my back, just to make it fair. Another thing, James Comey said in an interview that he revealed the reopening of the Hillary Clinton email investigation October 28, 2016, in part because he expected her to win the election. Comey told Stephanopoulos that he was influenced by the assumption that Clinton would win. What he is saying is that he wanted to get this wrapped up and have her well, no, this is not what he's saying, actually. I'm going to tell you what he's really doing here. He had evidence that Hillary emails were on Huma Abedin's computer and her husband, Carlos Danger, Anthony Weiner, for months. He knew for months what he announced on October 28th that he was going to do. He knew he had those emails. There were thousands and thousands of emails. Supposedly they were able to go through them all over a weekend and clear Hillary yet again. So he reopens it October 28th on things he could have done back in September or August. He announces after a 3-day weekend that Hillary's in the clear, nothing happened. He says he did this because he thought she was going to win, and in that sense, he wasn't really hurting her. Here's the real reason for this. Let me tell you the real reason he did this. He announces on July 5th that he's not going to prosecute her because no reasonable prosecutor would prosecute, because Hillary didn't intend to break the laws that she broke. Intent is not in the law. In other words, she did not have to intend to do what she did in order to be breaking the law. Comey invented that. But he was there to clear her because everybody had to keep Obama safe and dry. Because Barack Obama had lied when he said that he didn't know Hillary was using her own server until he saw it in the news. But that's demonstrably false because Obama was communicating with her on that server. And he saw her email address did not have a .gov suffix at the end of it. He knew it was off-site, and he knew it was personal, and he used it. And he was sending classified data back and forth with her. And he lied about that. They had to protect Obama, so Hillary was never going to get prosecuted. They had to go through this big dog and pony show to exonerate her. And Comey calls this press conference on July 5th. And if you'll recall, folks, after that happened, we're all agog here because it's not standard FBI behavior. They never go public with the status of an investigation. And when they close one, they just close it. They never tell anybody that they were investigating X and it's over, and they never explain what happened. But in this case, Comey went out and veritably gave us the bullet points of what an indictment of Hillary would look like. Remember what we all said? At the time, we all bought into this notion that Comey was Mr. Integrity. And what we thought was that Comey was handcuffed. And he wanted to go get her, but couldn't. And so he was telling the public, hey, she's really guilty. I want you to know it, but I can't do anything about it. Remember this? That was my take. I wasn't alone. I really thought that James Comey was who we were told he was, who we thought he was, Mr. Integrity, Mr. Law and Order. And I thought Comey was frustrated that he had the goods on her and couldn't do anything about it because of presidential politics pressure, or that he didn't want to involve himself in a presidential race and himself or the FBI be responsible for killing a nominee's candidacy. So instead, what he did was call the press conference and tell everybody the crimes she had committed, and then said, sorry, but we're not prosecuting because we couldn't find any intent. The Democrats hated that. They despised it. They didn't understand it. We thought Comey was on our side when he did that. Some of us did. Then October 28th, Comey reopens this. And the Hillary campaign is fit to be tied. We played the audio montage last Friday where all these Democrats hate Comey, demanding that he resign. He's embarrassed himself. He's embarrassed the FBI, worst FBI director ever. And on and on and on. Then the book comes out, and Comey says, well, he did this because he thought she was going to win the election. At some point, was the decision to reveal influenced by your assumption that Hillary was going to win? You're concerned that if she wins, this comes out weeks later, this is taken by her opponents as a sign she's an illegitimate president. Comey said, yeah, it must have been. I don't remember consciously thinking about that, but it must have been because I was operating in a world where Hillary Clinton was going to beat Trump. So he's dumping on the media, hey, everybody told me she was going to win. And he said, yeah, it must have been. I'm such a Boy Scout. My thoughts are so pure, yet it must have been that I was trying to do the right thing. Let me tell you what he was doing. He thought she was going to win, and he waited until a late date where his public reveal of the opening of the investigation would do as little damage as possible because the election was so soon afterwards. It was a great miscalculation. The effort here was indeed to exonerate her in toto before the election so that they could bury this email thing once and for all so that it would not resurface after she had won. That's why he did it. He could have done it in August. He didn't have anything in October 28th that he didn't have months earlier. He did it late. In a miscalculation that doing it late would cause her the least electoral damage because he thought her lead was sizable. He was believing Nate Silver. He was believing the New York Times and everybody else who said Hillary had a 95% chance, 7 to 8 point election margin victory, whatever. And so he was doing this to cause her the least damage. But stop and think. Forget the motivation. An FBI director announcing, revealing, admitting that he took a course of action in pursuit of a criminal manner based on political polling and news media reporting. Since when does the FBI pursue justice on the basis of public opinion polls, conventional wisdom, and media reporting? And remember, the overall objective was to protect and save Barack Obama legally. What Hillary was doing was demonstrably illegal, provably illegal, and Obama had lied when he said he didn't know she was doing that. These two things, to me, are all I need to know to realize that all of this is a gigantic scam and fix. And Comey's book, well, I'm having trouble trying to think of a characterization here in 30 seconds because I've got to take a break. I'm way long here. Let me get back to that. Yeah, that's right. Stephanopoulos says, did you tell Trump that the dossier was opposition research of the Clinton campaign? No, I didn't know it at the time. Comey could have said, no, I didn't know at the time that it was opposition. But he didn't say that. No, I didn't think about it. I didn't even call it the Steele dossier. No. And he was just totally preoccupied with it. Hey, Siri, stop. Thank you for telling me that because I couldn't hear the racket. What was it playing? Could you tell? The Funk Brothers? Anyway, Comey could have said, I didn't know, George, that it was opposition research at the time. But he didn't say that. This whole thing. And they all knew that it was that. Folks, this is such a scam. And you know, the fact that the drive-bys are trying to ignore this aspect of it, to me, makes it even bigger than I think it. Man, oh man, I don't know where the time went today. But it doesn't matter. We never really end anything here. We just take breaks. We're back here at 21 hours. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks always for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow.